Australian city of Brisbane. Hatem Bazian joins us from there, Professor of Middle East Cultures and Languages at the University of California, Berkeley. Always a pleasure to have you on, Professor. If Hamas denies it was involved in these attacks against Israeli soldiers, are there other armed groups in Gaza who are not on board with the ceasefire who may cause trouble, or are all the armed groups in agreement?
Well, as far as we know, that the armed groups in Gaza all have agreed and accepted the framework of the ceasefire. But are there other non-aligned individuals that operate? I would say yes. We also have to account for the possibility of a number of collaborators that are responsive to Israel, where these are set as a way for Israel to use it as a pretext. If you recall, there were a whole network of literally gangs that were operating inside Gaza under the direct to try to identify who did it and what is the context of what is taking place. What is clear to me from the beginning that Israel, and particularly Netanyahu and his government, are not interested in ending the ongoing genocide in Gaza. And they're going to use any pretext, real or perceived, to try to come back into full warfare on the Gaza and to try to fulfill their goals for the Gaza war that they have launched since October 2023.
And of course, the situation as it is now means that the next phases of the deal are just continually delayed because no stabilization force is going to agree to go to Gaza while there is a threat that they could be targeted. As the King of Jordan, Abdullah, said, he said no country will want to go there to enforce peace.
Well, it's interesting. The framework of the second stage is problematic as it may be. Still, the idea of having a stabilizing force is an idea that is really to try to have a transition. And this transition cannot really occur while Israel is intending on both violating the ceasefire, but more importantly, if we hear Netanyahu, if we hear Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, they actually intend on expanding their footprint in Gaza, and they still want to have some type of settlement and annexation of Gaza. So this seems to be there is a almost a discrepancy between what Israel have agreed to in relations to Gaza with a stabilization force, with U.S. troops already set in Israel in order for them to at least supervise or oversee, and then the countries that are supposedly to send troops, including Turkey, Jordan, and others. So I cannot really see that second stage commencing while there is definitely deliberate sabotage taking place from Netanyahu and his coalition government, as we see. Also, one has to also recognize that Netanyahu is facing still his legal problems. And every time there is a step forward or an attempt to move the legal case forward, Netanyahu actually foments a crisis, and in here launching an attack on the day of his court proceedings that in essence suspend for national security reasons the process or the proceedings in the court level. I think that Netanyahu wants to stretch this crisis, this genocide in Gaza, all the way until possibly next year of the Israeli election, where he could actually maneuver around once again. So really, we're dealing with an intransigent Netanyahu that is refusing to move to end the Gaza genocide and the war. And increasingly, we see a gap developing between Netanyahu on the one hand and Trump, even though that Trump is continuing to provide support for Netanyahu's position. I think increasingly he's losing some part of the mega coalition in the United States, that there's a critique of Netanyahu and Israel in this sense. So I think Trump can stay with Netanyahu for a while, but I think the gap is increasing as we speak.
Just briefly, if you don't mind, Professor, Donald Trump himself says Hamas has been given permission to remain in certain areas to maintain order. Do you think without any sort of internal security force in Gaza that the enclave would just descend into lawlessness?
Well, I do think that Hamas still has command and control in various parts of Gaza. And I think the question that we still is unanswerable when the ceasefire and the plan is that the idea of disarming Hamas, who's going to do it? What are the mechanisms? Assuming that that is an agreed upon principle, the mechanism and the procedure, and then how you actually going to transition from 2.5 or 2.2 million people that are really have been subject to a government in Gaza led by Hamas for a completely foreign troops from various countries to come in and try to actually have a law and order in the society. I still can't see this developing with the current configuration in Gaza, outside Gaza, and in the region. So I would say the plan is very, very difficult. I said that the first stage will be executed well in terms of the handing of the surviving hostages and prisoners, but I can't see the 20 points that have been put in place by Trump to be implemented. And the second stage is almost a non-starter with the type of development that we see in Gaza today.
Professor Hatem Bazian, thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.